That's a great note, actually. So I am recording this, and what I'll do is I'll send out a recording of this tomorrow, if that works for you, with a link. It'll
Yes,
be
perfect.
uploaded. Awesome. It'll be uploaded to a YouTube playlist as well that will be accompanied by the rest of the webinars that we've been doing, so that you guys can go back and watch it later as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you for the reminder. All right, so we'll jump in here. Again, it's great to see everyone. My name is Maya. I work on the marketing team at Dragons. So I work closely with outreach as well as programming, making sure that we're getting our messaging out. And I'm also here because I was a past student on the Nepal Himalayan semester back in 2016. So I'm really here to offer a student perspective and answer any questions in that regard. But I'm joined by Christy, who is our training and curriculum director. And Christy, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more if you want.
Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We're honored that you'll spend this part of the end of your day with us. Um, as Maya said, my current title at Dragons is the Training and Curriculum Director, but I've held many roles with Dragons over the past 15 years, both as an instructor and an administrator. I led my first Dragons program as an instructor in 2008. That was actually the West Africa semester. And I fell in love with this part of the world, with South Asia, doing a Fulbright fellowship in Bangladesh in 2010 and 11. And since that time, I spent more than 3 years working as an instructor on Dragons programs in India, and have also spent 8 to 9 months in Nepal supporting our programming, um, working as an instructor and doing trainings for our staff there. So I speak some Bengali and Hindi, and really, my real passion for this part of the world is that it has been one of my greatest teachers. And as an administrator and instructor for Dragons, it's my favorite part of the world to teach and engage our students, whether whether our high school age students or adults. So that's what I'm doing here. That's it. I'll hand it back to you, Maya.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. So we're gonna start a little bit broad here and go over general pieces about Dragons as a company, and then I'll pass it back off to Christy and she'll really dive into our more regional knowledge about Nepal and India. So where did we get our name? Our name really came from more of like map makers, mostly colonial or European centric folks who drew dragons in places that were beyond their map or places that they didn't know. So today for us, where there be dragons means going beyond what's known to you, and kind of exploring these unfamiliar places, so we can better understand ourselves and the world around us. A little bit about dragons. We started back in 1993, so just over 30 years. We've been running the most culturally immersive programs, summer and gap, as well as some adult programming and partnership programs, and custom travel. Today we're going to be talking about our high school and college student group experiences. We offer 2 to 6 week summer programs, although they're primarily 4 weeks. The two that we're offering for Nepal and India are both 4 week programs that leave June 28th and run for about a month. And then, of course, we offer our gap semester programs, which depart in the fall and the spring. Those also have the option to get college credit if you're interested in that. And those are usually for folks who have completed their high school education and are headed off. So what makes Dragons so unique? We really focus on what we call unfiltered travel. So this looks like going to and traveling to a country in our most authentic way and in a genuine fashion. This is really built on our 9 program components, which we'll hop into later. We try to travel to a country more as a traveler rather than a tourist is something we'll often say. We really want to provide experiences that feel really meaningful to folks, those around us, and then ones that we're working with our groups as well. Our group travel is led by our expert instructor teams. We have awesome instructors. Maybe Christy can speak to that a little bit more. We really hire folks who have that cultural fluency of the places that they're leading. They have really amazing regional knowledge, and they're diverse in the sense that the way they work together, they bring a different skill set. A lot of folks that we do hire are either from the country or are very familiar with where they're leading. And then because our instructor teams are so diverse and hold this expertise, they're able to create what we call custom crafted or one of a kind or these unique itineraries. You'll often see that on our website, that no 2 Dragons programs are the same. And that really just means that we're able to adapt the course of our itineraries based on the instructor's knowledge about the area. It also means that if there's a really amazing festival or event, or something that's within that time frame, that we're able to kind of pivot and make sure that that happens, or make sure that we're not missing out on anything that might present itself in that moment. With that, we travel in really small groups. So it's 12 students to 3 instructors, and that helps us provide this personalized mentorship and unparalleled support while a student is abroad. It also leans into our responsible travel piece. And then the last piece that makes us quite unique is our unplugged experiences and programs. Students do not bring their phones on a program. That doesn't mean that they're not in touch or you're not hearing from them. It just means that we're taking away that level of distraction that a lot of us find when we're traveling, or we might use our phone as a crutch sometimes. And to remove that piece allows for beautiful memories and meaningful connections, as well as just a more present traveler. With that being said, students do have the opportunity to talk to their parents or their loved ones once in a while, depending on the program. We also have a student travel blog called the Yak Board, which is updated quite frequently, I would say weekly. And it's really where students will go on and type stories of what they've been up to. Instructors will add photos with updates. It's a really amazing board to check out, especially we have a Nepal program in the field right now, 2 sessions. So I'd recommend checking that out and reading some of their stories. But Christy, do you have anything else to add in this slide?
No, I'm here to maybe just give another little shout out to our instructors. I do think that the instructors that we work with, the people that we work with, are some of the most fantastic people on the planet. It's not uncommon for us to have students who will sign up for a second Dragons program in order to get to spend another summer with the instructor that they had the year before. We've got we don't work with ground operators for the most part. Our instructors are the ones who are creating our itineraries, and we're using their contacts. So it's just it's a really special part of what we do with, like, for example, one of the instructors that we have working in Nepal right now is American, but did a Fulbright fellowship in Nepal and spent over a year there, speaks fluent Nepali, lived in a village and did a research project there, and, has spent a lot of time in Nepal since that time. That's the kind of like American that we might have working as part of our instructor team, someone who's really spent time in the country, who knows the place. You know, and then we also have both Nepali and Indian staff who have worked with dragons for many years, who have their own, you know, who are bringing their own passions, creative pursuits and interests into the programs, and who are able to share, you know, their country with our students in a really special way. So I just wanted to give another shout out to to our instructors, because I think they're the ones that, you know, really make our program, make every program unique um and stand out. That's all.
Awesome. So who are our dragon students? We get a lot of questions if this program would be right for my child or if it's right for me. I think something that a common thread that we find among our students is that they're really eager to learn and they're very curious. They're very interested in the places that we're going or they're traveling to. We do not require or we don't have any prerequisites for folks joining Dragons programs. We have a lot of our students come from diverse backgrounds in terms of travel experience. We have folks who have never left home before but really want to. We have folks who are very well traveled. Same with language skill. We have folks who are close to fluent in languages like Spanish, and we have folks who have never learned it before. So we ask that students come prepared and willing to like take on some of these challenges and maybe go off the beaten path a bit. But we also welcome folks who are just really willing to get out there and learn. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Christy here. She's going to talk about the current summer abroad and gap year programs that we're offering.
Thanks, Maya. Yeah, so as you can see, we have as Maya mentioned, we have the 3-month Nepal and India semester programs that take place both in the fall and in the spring. And then we have the India and Nepal summer programs that are 4 weeks long. One of those which offers college credit. The other programs, I would say, we're not focusing on those in this webinar, but we do have a program for adults that's taking place in Nepal this fall. Maya, maybe you can throw the link to that program in the chat at some point when you have a moment. We also run school partnership programs. So we have different schools that are traveling, you know, that elect to travel, do their school programming with dragons. One of our sort of foundational partners that we have in this region is with Princeton University. We run a 9-month-long gap year program for admitted Princeton students. And so we, you know, Dragons has a real depth of connections and contacts sort of across the whole region. I know that we've been running programming in Nepal, I think since 1995 or 1994, 1995, and in India almost as long. So yeah, we've got in the programs that we're offering in India, our India summer program is up high in the Indian Himalayas in the region of Ladakh. Ladakh feels very sort of far away from the realities that we think of when we think of the sort of plains India with really bustling, busy cities. The Ladakh program, our summer program, that program that you see on the far left there, the Indian Himalayas program, is such a far cry from that. Students arrive in Delhi and then take an hour flight and are really transported sort of to a different world. You land in the airport at above 11,000 feet. You hardly go below that, and you're in this very special mix of Tibetan Buddhist and Muslim communities that are, you know, have been an outpost on the Silk Road and really kind of living a very unique in unique harmony with their environment up in that far part of that sort of far corner of the Himalayas. The Nepal program, I would just say the Nepal summer program is very different. We know that the Himalayas, the mountain range, is a big draw for folks who are interested in this region. For students who are interested in trekking, we recommend the India program for in the summer for trekking, because the Nepal summer program actually doesn't focus as much on trekking because it's the monsoon season. That Ladakh region in India is in a rain shadow, so they don't get much rain, and it's possible for us to run a more trekking intensive program up there, 10 to 13 days of trekking on the India summer program. Whereas the Nepal summer program, they don't tend to do as much trekking. It's at a much lower elevation. And that's right. The July, when we run our programs, it's right when the monsoon is coming through. So both impractical and undesirable to spend extensive time in the mountains, although they do get out on day hikes. Um, I'll talk a little bit more about the semester programs as we go through, but just to mention something about them briefly, the Nepal semester program is historically one of Dragon's most popular programs. We run 2, sometimes even 3 sections of that program every fall and every spring, and it's definitely one of Dragon's sort of greatest hits. The India semester program was rewritten right before COVID. I was the one who designed the new itinerary for the India program, and we didn't have a chance to run it after COVID hit. So it's a program that I'm really excited about. It's a program that travels from the high Himalayas in the Sikkim region, which is on the other side of the Himalayas. We'll get to the India map soon. And it really follows like the various watersheds all the way out to the Bay of Bengal, and is meant to look at India through the lens of water and through climate change, looking at communities that will be among the first affected by climate change. So definitely themes that are hopefully very relevant to today, and very like sort of present in all of our minds. And really, I would say with all of our programs, our aim is to be off the beaten track. We know that, you can go on a tour to India and see the Taj Mahal and the other sort of big sites. And our goal is to offer something that um, would be much harder to do or accomplish if you were just traveling independently. Yeah, I think we can go to the next slide, Maya. So a few highlights about India, and I apologize to India. I've really cut off some of the northeastern states there on the side of this map. Um, as I mentioned previously, what we've done is to really try to highlight India's diversity, and to take our programs off of the beaten path. As you can see here, I've put the breakdown by religion here on this slide just to show you that there is a significant majority Hindu population in India, and our summer program would be predominantly interacting with Tibetan Buddhist population and some Muslims, along with some Hindus, up in that like that very northernmost bit of the country, and then our semester program would kind of, if you see that little thumb just to the right of Nepal, that's Sikkim, and then kind of following that all the way down along that side of Bangladesh, down, through Calcutta and down and out to the Bay of Bengal. That's sort of where our India semester program would travel through. And, again, traveling through areas that get a much closer look at the significant amount of diversity in the country. Just last year, India surpassed China as the country in the world with the most population, over 1.4 billion. India is also the world's largest democracy, and it's a place that I am always saying is just one of the most important for us to be learning about. There's so much happening there, so much going on there, and I think in the coming few decades, India will sort of increase in its importance in the world, and that's why I'm always encouraging students, colleagues, everyone to learn more about it. Okay, we can go to the next one on Nepal. So Nepal, I'm from the state of Iowa, and so it's a very helpful frame of reference for me to know that the whole country of Nepal is around the same size as the state of Iowa. You have we think when we think of Nepal, we think of the mountains and of the Himalayan range, and actually the Himalayas do sort of make up roughly the top 2/3 of the country, but the bottom third, more or less, is plains, and is both geographically and I would say culturally more similar to sort of plains India than to the Himalayan cultures and the mountain cultures in the north. Um, there's around 300 million people in Nepal, with several million more abroad. One of the things that Nepal, like one thing that people say about Nepal is that one of its biggest exports is its people, and you'll find Nepalis, a ton of Nepali people, working in the Middle East and in other places. Um, Another sort of interesting thing about Nepal in this region is that it is one of the few countries in the region that was never colonized. There was certainly some British influence there, but it wasn't officially sort of colonized in that way. It makes it very different than India, and is a big point of pride for Nepali people. And a lot of our students come in thinking that maybe sort of having this conception that there's a more significant Buddhist population in Nepal. So I just wanted to put that there too, that Nepal is a predominantly Hindu country, and the program areas that we visit will interact with both Hindu and Buddhist populations for sure, as well as some of the others that make up a smaller minority. All right. One of the other things, this is a little bit more broad than specific to our Nepal and India programs, but just something about dragons that we wanted to highlight in this presentation for you all is that we have a course progression, and again, that's something that it's a little bit of a mental shift from, thinking about just like if you sign up for a trip and the whole itinerary is planned and it's all in front of you. We do things very differently than that. And that's part of the reason why you hear us calling our programs a program rather than a trip. It is a progression that you move through. So what that looks like on a Dragon's course would be that you land in the country and you have an orientation, an opportunity to sort of recover from jet lag, especially if you're traveling from North America. It takes a few days to sort of settle in, get on the right time zone, meet your peers. There's often 12 students per program, and the 3 instructors, so taking time for that group dynamics and bonding, and a little bit of exploring the area, but really sort of like taking it slow and easy, setting up group norms, and just making sure that everyone feels like set and settled. From the orientation, we move into the skill acquisition phase, which again, looks like students starting to take language classes, starting to explore, like if they're moving into a homestay, for example, the first few times maybe a homestay family member would be walking them from their homestay to the program house. And then, we might be asking students to make a map, so that they're able to do that walk on their own the next time. Um, lots of things involving sort of navigation, and language, and using and like doing things like starting to learn how to like what's on the menu. And then, with the next phase, sort of like just like flowing into that, just practicing those skills as you're learning them. And that looks like at the end of a semester program, I think our students are often really um, very happily surprised with the confidence that they have, that they get to in what they're able to navigate on their own over the course of the program, just those skills that they get. The second to last part of a summer semester program we call our expedition phase, or X phase, and that's where we really try to hand over some of that decision making power, even itinerary making power, over to the students, and say, you've gotten a chance to learn all these skills. What sets your curiosity on fire in this place? Take us there. And of course, that's with the support and guidance of the instructors, but really gives the students an opportunity to, it depends on the program and what sort of flexibility there is, but gives the students the opportunity to choose somewhere that they want to go, plan it themselves, plan what they want to do in that place, all sort of within the Dragon's ethic of traveling, which they've had an opportunity to learn in the previous weeks or months of the program. And then finally, transference. Again, it's just those last few days of a program where we slow things down again. We don't want our courses to feel like this sort of like isolated moment in time where you get dropped off in a place, you have this big experience, and then you go back and your life back at home, wherever that may be, is exactly the same. We want to think intentionally during our transference about, how have I been impacted by this experience? What does this look like? What does this mean for me? So we do take intentional time at the end of our programs to really explore those big questions, and to like celebrate achievements, and prepare, for the transition, both logistically and emotionally, of going back home. Can go to the next slide. Okay, I wanted to talk again about our program components. Our program components are what sort of give shape to a Dragon's experience. There's 9 of them. I'm not going to talk about all 9 of them. I'll talk about a few, some in more depth and some in a little bit less depth. I was also really delighted to see this photo again. This is one of my former students from India when we traveled to Rajasthan on an excursion. So, anyways, this is my former student Caroline, learning how to weave, touching on our independent study program component. All of the programs will, on the program page on our website, will show you um, how how heavily each component is weighted. So you'll be able to see on a scale of 1 to 5, if with 5 being, this is a fundamental part of this course, and then it'll talk about what that looks like, or 1 to 2 would be, would obviously have less of a focus. So that's a little bit about our program component, something important to think about if you're choosing a Dragons program for yourself. Um, all of the programs in this region are fairly heavily focused on homestays. And again, I know that this is something that can feel intimidating for our students when they're thinking about signing up for a program, or when they're on a program. They might feel a sense of apprehension or nervousness about what does it mean to go and live with a family that I don't know. I don't speak Nepali, or I don't speak Hindi. I don't speak Ladakhi. How am I going to communicate? And I have to say, we've been doing this for 30 years, and it's one of the biggest points of learning, and often of connection and joy. I was just in touch with some of my former students last week who were telling me that they had gotten a call from their homestay family in Senegal. So these are connections that can that can endure well past the duration of the program. Our most of our homestay families, we've been working in the same communities for many years, sometimes decades. They're families that know dragons, that have an ongoing relationship with dragons throughout the year. Dragons has country coordinators in both Nepal and India. Those are, in Nepal, that's a Nepali woman, and in India, that's an Indian man. Those are people who are living in those countries who are responsible for maintaining those relationships throughout the year. So they'll have homestay gatherings before students arrive to go over our rules. They'll be checking in on those families. They're present for the families, weddings and funerals and other community events. So we really do have a presence in the communities that we're visiting throughout the year, not just when students are there. So yeah, you can sort of rest assured that the families are, thoroughly screened by us, that we hold a relationship with them, and that time and time again, experience has shown that those family relationships tend to be very sweet and enduring ones for our students. Maya, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything about your experience with your homestay families when you were in Nepal.
Yeah, definitely. I think something else to add too is pre-departure, we'll try to make sure that we set you up with what's comfortable for you. Some of our students, they want to be a little bit closer to the program house. Some of our students don't care. Some of them have to take a bus to the program house. Some of them are 5 minutes walking. Um, and that's really based on like your own comfort level. When I decided to do my program, I was really interested in having a program sibling, or homestay sibling if possible. Like Christy said, I still keep in touch with my homestay family, and that was 8 years ago. It's really a place where I was able to practice with a lot of laughter, my Nepali, and also cook meals, and really get to know the culture on a deeper level, and kind of participate in those family activities, outside of the group experience. So it's a very fond memory. I think a lot of students find that it's one of their favorite parts of our programs, even if there is that initial anxiety about it. We find that once they're situated and they start to get comfortable, they're very sad to leave. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to be a little bit more clear about the timing, on a summer program, you could expect, on the India summer program, to spend about a week with the rural homestay family. On the Nepal summer program, you could expect to spend about 2 weeks in between an urban and a rural homestay, doing two different homestays, one in an urban area, one in a rural area, probably a little bit more than 2 weeks. And on our semester programs, the majority of the time, I would say 7 or 8 weeks, you would be in homestays. Not Usually the homestays aren't any longer than 3 or 4 weeks. That would be the very longest on a semester program. But of course, the longer you have, the more opportunity you have to find depth in those relationships. Alrighty, we can go on to independent study projects. This often is a highlight, again, in this region. So usually the independent study projects are happening at the same time as students are in homestays. They might have one, while they're doing their urban homestay, maybe choose another one in a rural homestay, depending on what's available in those areas. So it's not necessarily something that can happen maybe the whole duration of the course, just because the resources wouldn't be available, as the group is traveling. But certainly while the group is in one place, there's so many things that our students have really loved doing in this region. Just a few examples would be wood carving, metalworking, jewelry making, um, painting, different kinds of painting, just, sort of like regular painting, also Tanka painting, which is a Tibetan Buddhist style of painting, stone carving, learning about Ayurveda, which is a holistic Indian medicine, learning about Vedic astrology, yoga and yogic philosophy, doing more in-depth language study, whether in Sanskrit or in Nepali, learning tailoring, working with a tailor, making clothes, cooking, learning various dishes in these regions. And then lots of students who focus on music, learning local instruments, which you can see here in the photos. Maya, did you want to share about your ISP?
Sure. So when I was in Nepal, I did a jewelry making ISP. Um, it was really great because it was during the time when we were in Kathmandu and staying with our homestay families. So kind of the typical day would be that we would wake up, have a quick breakfast with our homestay families, go to the program house for a language lesson, perhaps do like a little exploration as a group, and then head off separately into our independent study projects. It's not always one individual per mentorship. It kind of depends who's interested in the group and in what. A couple of folks from my group did a yoga ISP together and led us through a class at the end, whereas my project was a little bit more tangible, is that I got to create a piece of jewelry with my mentor and then kind of work on that throughout the entirety of our Kathmandu stay. So like Christy said, there's tons of options. We really try to cater based on what you're interested in or what you could be interested in. And I do find that this is a really meaningful experience as well for folks.
Okay. As I mentioned before, trekking in the draw of the mountains is something that is a frequent call to this region for our students. Um, I just wanted to share a little bit about trekking in the Himalayas and a little bit about Dragon's sort of approach and towards trekking. One, our approach is not about reaching a summit. We don't really do we don't really go to the summit of mountains on in our treks. We on our India summer program and on the Nepal and India semester programs, you can expect, 10 to 14 days of trekking on all of those programs. And you would often be walking anywhere from 4 to 6, sometimes 7 hours at the most per day. Um, there's very little about the Himalayas that is flat. You sometimes end up on a ridge line for a while, but it's a lot of up and down. And as such that can it is and it feels challenging. And again, we're not focused on summiting, we're not focused on achievement in that sense. For us, achievement means staying together as a group. It means, it means pushing through the sort of physical discomfort. It means supporting each other. And it means, it does mean ultimately covering, large swaths of terrain on foot and having and usually going over passes rather than sort of focusing on a summit. Like our North India summer program is one that I have led several times, and that program goes over a pass that's at 17,200 feet. So we're up high. And in Nepal it can be similar, the highest point that they might go over could be up that high. It really depends. The treks are sort of chosen based on lots of different factors, based on the weather and based on the trekking company that we work with that helps support us in doing that. So lots of again, lots of sort of anticipation and a little bit of anxiety about the trekking. But I can reassure you that, we do encourage our students to like work on their fitness in advance of a program, and to come onto the program ready to do some, to have some physical exertion. But you don't have to be an ultra marathoner in order to do these treks. If you could see me, I'm 5'1", I'm not very strong, and I've done the hardest treks that Dragons does in this region with our students. So I can reassure you that it's more of a mental challenge, really, than a physical one, I think, at the end of the day. Something I wanted to mention, and I love this photo that we have here, this photo sort of up in the top left, is that if you have done trekking in the United States or in Canada or in Europe, you know that you're really like unsupported. You have to carry all of your food and everything. You don't there's not places to stop along the way. You might have to arrange to have a resupply like dropped off. And trekking in the Himalayas is very different. We go out with huge teams, sometimes like up to 16, 17 porters and guides and cooks who are accompanying us. Trekking is a huge industry, not just in Nepal, but in the Indian Himalayas as well. And the way that you trek in a group there is with a big team, sometimes with mules and ponies also supporting, sometimes just with a group of porters that are carrying. So usually our groups, you can see this a little bit from the size of the backpacks that the students are carrying in that photo on the bottom. Students are carrying a lot of they're carrying their own personal, clothing and headlamps and maybe some snacks, their food for the day, but they're not carrying their tents or the bulk of the food. And so that's something that is very different. Maya, did you want to share anything about your trekking experience?
Sure. I mean, I will say this was probably the biggest draw of why I chose the Nepal program. It came from a place of really wanting to see those mountains and be out there. Something to note that Christy did was that since we're not going over the summits, you still feel, and you're certainly out in the mountains, and they feel huge and they're beautiful. And I think sometimes we'll even look out at some of the hills of Nepal or India, and we'll think of those as mountains. Those of us who are from, you know, North America for sure, where I'm from in Vermont. And I do think it is such a special place to be able to experience, especially working with such an amazing porter team. It really does take the stress off of that largely physical component. There is the challenge, of course, of carrying some of your own gear, but it does take away that piece. We also primarily stay in tents, which are also not carried by students, carried by porters. I believe it's the same in India. And yeah, I mean, I definitely can say that if you are interested in trekking, this is kind of one of our biggest recommendations for programming. Like Christy said, it's one of our most popular, I think, because of that component. And it's certainly something that I think about to this day. So I think we have one more nice little photo of this beautiful mountain range from one of our treks, but it is a really special place out in the Himalayas.
Yeah, and of course, people know that in Nepal you have Everest. We don't do the Everest Base Camp trek. It's very busy, and we try to do things that are a bit more off the beaten track. Again, not hard for you to organize to go to Everest Base Camp on your own at some point. So we try to offer something that's different from that. I would say though that maybe less known is that the trekking that's done on the India semester program is sort of in the shadow of Kanchenjunga, which is the third highest peak in the world. The trekking that's done on the North India program up in Ladakh is sort of done in the shadow of K2, the world's second largest peak, which is just across the border in Pakistan. So, big. These are some of the biggest mountains in the world, and the landscapes that we're going through are absolutely stunning, regardless of which program you would join us for to do that.
And just one last thing I'll add about the trekking piece is that this is also a really nice like skill acquisition place in our program. Folks who haven't had any trekking experience, we welcome. And I found in my own group, and we found with a lot of student feedback that they come back feeling really confident in this piece. They're able to set up a tent, they're able to, filter their water. They understand kind of like the basics of trekking, which I think is really amazing if that's something you're interested in learning more about. We have such a supportive team. And with the small group travel, we're really able to like focus on that as well.
I've had lots of my former students say, now that I've done this trek, I know that I can do anything, not just in the realm of trekking, but sort of beyond that.
Yeah, so
Um, Um, a couple more of the program components that I wanted to focus on. A lot of our students are really curious to learn about Buddhism and Hinduism. And that's something that we do on all of the programs that we run in this region, whether summer or semester. They do include some form of monastery retreat, or yoga retreat, ashram stay. That is something that all of our programs would focus on. The individual program pages would specify more about what that tends to look like. But that is something that tends to be a highlight for our students, and something when Maya and I were talking about this earlier, she was saying that it really felt like that doing a retreat, if you go and do a 5-day retreat with your group, that there's a lot of sort of challenge by choice in there. Some students who are opting to perhaps like take a vow of silence for a day, or for parts of a day, parts of days. Whereas other students are there to learn more about the philosophy, and there's different ways to engage and challenge oneself in those spaces. And usually, you're also getting exposure to these religious traditions in your homestay families, and just in your day-to-day life. You would also get exposure more, I would say, to Islam on the India program, just based on the places where the group is traveling. But on all of the programs, you would get a lot to learn about both Hindu and mostly Tibetan Buddhist philosophy and practice. Wanted to mention learning service. I think the idea of volunteering is something that can be a draw for a lot of our students. And I just wanted to emphasize there's a lot on the Dragons website about this, that we have. Dragons has a particular sort of orientation towards what that looks like. And the learning service philosophy is one that was really sort of refined by some of our instructors more than 10 years ago, where we try to be really humble to the fact that we're coming in as outsiders and that we have to learn before you serve, basically. Um, we follow the communities that we're staying in, we follow their lead. We often are getting involved in agricultural projects, or supporting our homestay families if they're harvesting or something like that. But we don't have volunteer specific programs, but we do have an extensive curriculum where we're learning about how to be of service. So that's sort of our take on and what that looks like on our programs. Language study is a part of all of our programs. It looks a little bit different. Obviously, there's a little bit less time for language study if you're on a summer program versus a semester, but you'll get some, on the North India summer program, you would get some Ladakhi lessons. On the Nepal summer program, you would get Nepali. On the Nepal semester program, you would be taking a lot of Nepali classes over the course of the semester. On the India semester program, you'd be learning um, potentially a little bit of Hindi, a little bit of Bengali. And that the reason why we do that, one, it's mostly as a way for cultural that sort of cultural engagement and contact piece. It helps so much to be able to navigate your way around, do have basic communication with homestay families and things like this. So that you can see in the photos sort of like what a language lesson might look like if you're in a rural area, and then what language practice might look like if you're out in the world. Another one of our program components is social and environmental justice. I put a picture of India's watersheds on here just to emphasize that on the India programs there is a big focus on the sort of climate change and the impacts to these local communities that are really on the front lines of climate change. That the India semester program specifically focuses on water. The North India summer program has a significant focus on the sort of cultural changing cultural relationship that communities have with their environment, with the introduction of more tourism and things like that. There's a focus on a lot of different social and environmental issues on our Nepal programs, including caste and gender issues. Women's menstruation is an interesting topic to look at in Nepal. And so lots of different things. And again, we bring our instructors' passions and knowledge in to inform these topics. So that can look different from course to course. It's very exciting always to talk about food. Here on the left, I put a typical Nepali dal bhat plate, which you can see has dal is just means lentils, bhat means rice in Nepali. And you can see, that you've got some different kinds of veggies, some pickles, chutneys, some meat over there, some crunchy stuff, some salad. On the bottom right, you see something that would be more typical in North India, which it depends by region, but more those folks tend to eat more roti or chapati rather than rice with vegetables. And then there's some sweets up there in the top right, usually made of like milk and sugar and other good stuff. It's very easy for us to accommodate vegetarian and vegan students in this region. I'm vegetarian and have been for more than 20 years. And one of my favorite things about traveling in this region is that there is always amazing food. It is, I think sometimes our students can say that they find the food to be a bit repetitive, but it is tasty. And I think there's very few places in the world actually that have the variety of food that you can find in an American grocery store, for example. So that would be something that is common sort of across our programs. But students tend to really enjoy and like the food. Lots of students who do decide to do cooking ISPs. We have successfully managed all kinds of allergies. I think one of the hardest allergies for us to manage on the India Nepal programs is lentil allergy, just because they are so prevalent. But for folks who are gluten intolerant, or as I mentioned, vegetarian or vegan, there's lots of options. So the preparation, I won't go into any of this. I just wanted to say that if you come on a Dragons program, we do another pre-departure webinar with you where we go through all of these things in great detail. We also provide you a manual that really sort of spells out everything that you would need to know in order to be prepared for the program in advance and to stay healthy while you're there. So I don't think there's anything more that I need to say about any of this for now, but just to say that we do think about all these things and we do want to make folks feel supported before and during their program. And that is all that we have for now. We're happy to take questions. We're also available by email. You can always email. I'll put my email in the chat. You can also email info@wherethere-be-dragons with any of your questions, and that will get forwarded on to the right person. So I'll put both of those. I'll just add both of those into the chat right now, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions if anyone has any questions.
Yes,
have
I
one.
actually do. Oh, sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
for it.
Okay. I do have a questions. It's like I see that the Nepal program, it's for the semester, you only have 3 space left for the September one. Would you actually, you said that you can actually, sometimes you do more than one program for September if you have more people. And what is the minimum of people that you need to have to actually engage in the program, do the program?
Yeah, so I think the photo that was up there, like we said, we'll run multiple sessions, especially with so much interest in Nepal. It looks like the first session will be filling up actually quite soon, and we'll 100% open the second or third session if we need to. Correct me if I'm wrong, Christy, but I think our minimum that we'll run with is 10, depending on the group size for a semester program.
8 to 10.
8 to
Yeah.
10.
Mhm.
Okay, and there will be for the same time, like you will run more than one program, like I think you start in September 15 to December 3rd. So you will run more than one if you have more than at least 8 people in it, right?
Yes. Same dates.
Same dates, yes, 8 people. Now, for what regards for the family, how many people there will be of your group in the same family? Just one person, or you have like 2 people of the same group?
In the urban homestay in Nepal, for example, we have 1 student per family there, and where we can do that, we prefer to have 1 student per family. It can make it feel a little bit more nerve-wracking, but it also allows for the students to have more connection with their host family, and that's why we do that. For the North India program, for example, in the summer, the communities that we visit, there's just not enough families that in the areas where we go that could host 12 students, and so we often do have our students doubled up. So it sort of depends. For our semester programs, though, most of our students can count on being in individual homestays.
Individual, okay. And the meals are included, everything is included, right? In the price?
Everything is included, yeah. I mean, our students often will like to have a little bit of extra spending money to, buy their own snacks. Snickers bars are like a real fan favorite. And, sometimes they'll pay to have their laundry done, or they want to buy local clothes, and gifts, of course, to buy and bring home. But those are the only things that students need money for. And we do talk about that in the materials that we send out in advance. We do sort of give a guideline for how much spending money they might need on top of the program, but they don't have to bring anything
Got it.
extra.
And the other thing is, like you said, that there will be no cellular and everything. So basically, for pictures, you suggest to have a camera, I guess. And
Exactly.
how many times? How does it work? When can you talk, or I don't know, text or whatever? So when we will be in touch with the daughter or the son?
Yeah, great question. And again, that sort of it depends a little bit by program. And we do put up guidelines on the Yak board that try to give a little bit more specific information about what that looks like. The students won't they can bring their phones with them, they'll just be collected and held by the instructors for the duration, so they won't have access to their phones. The programs will travel with a group tablet or iPad that everyone can sort of, like, pass around and use. Of course, that's only helpful if they're in a place that has Wi-Fi, so, that can be when the group is in an urban area, we often have our Nepal semester students And their families are surprised that while the group is in their urban homestay, they have more connectivity than they expected. You know, if they wanted to be in touch every day or every other day, they could be. And that feels surprising. Then when the group goes on trek for 2 weeks, the main communication is through posts on the Yak board, and there's not any, sort of individual communication. That said, in the case of an emergency, we're always in touch with our instructors, the administration. I'm also part of our risk management team, and in-field support team. And so we're always in touch with our instructors. If there's an emergency from either side, we always have a way of being in touch.
Yeah, get in touch with us. And then because my son, we were looking for the semester, and you said that there are classes that they can take for college credit, right? Because this is actually the senior, so we'll go to college, but we won't, probably is going to take a gap year. And so if that are the courses that, then can you instruct him, which one to take, how they work and all of that?
We can send there's information that's available on our website, and there's actually 2 opportunities for how to take college credit on the Nepal program. You can take credit through Portland State University, or you can take credit through Naropa University. Those credits are issued in a slightly different way depending on which one you go for. And it's up to you to know how those credits might transfer to their the institution where they'll be going into after the gap year is over. But that information is available on our website.
Yeah, I was looking at the one in Portland, that there is one that is actually communication. And so will they take classes for communication, or how does it work?
The Portland State University courses have kind